room to see that you're smiling, you had your wonderful breakfast, and everything is working out so well. Can I now see the smiles? Just the smiles. Just the smiles that you are happy to be here and you are glad to be here. I can see the smiles, I can see everything that's coming out from there. Welcome to our ESG Conference 2025, which is the second edition. And I'm not going to do much more of the welcomes this morning. And as we start our program, I'll just allow the CEO of Institute of Directors, Zimbabwe, to come forward and also welcome every one of us here, and so that you can feel and your smiles can be up to your ears. So I'll give this time to the CEO of IODZ, Ms. Catherine Nyachonje. Can we clap hands for her?
Thank you, Pascal. You're smiling too much. I'm not sure if I'm going to match that effort. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning.
I'm used to greeting people and saying good morning, directors. I'm configured like that. Forgive me if you hear me saying good morning, directors, or referring to you as directors. I'm sure you are. As the first speaker this morning, I will give you the protocol so that the rest of the people who speak after me will not have to go through that gruesome exercise. Good morning once again, and thank you and welcome, and we appreciate you joining us for the second edition of the ESG Conference. Just for roll call, who was here last year? Ah, beautiful. Please clap hands for the committed sustainability persons. We acknowledge that. I do so this morning on behalf of the three co-hosting institutions, the Institute of Directors Zimbabwe, the Institute of Chartered Accountants Zimbabwe, and the Institute of Sustainability Africa. We are delighted to have you, each one of you here this morning, as leaders, as professionals, as policymakers, and as regulators, who are all gathered here for a shared purpose: to translate the principles of environmental, social, and governance into practical action that drives responsibility and resilient organization. Allow me, ladies and gentlemen, this morning to welcome our distinguished speakers, both local and international. Your presence and expertise add immense value to this conference. We thank you for taking the time to share your knowledge and your experiences with us as we collectively chart pathways towards sustainable business leadership. To our partners and our sponsors, we extend sincere appreciation for your support. We would not have come this way without your support and your commitment to this cause. A special note of gratitude to the team behind the scenes, the team from the Institute of Directors, ICAS, and INSAF, who have worked tirelessly since last year when we left this place to make today a success. This partnership among these three institutions is both strategic and timely. Each organization brings unique strengths that, when combined, create a powerful force for transformation. As you may already be aware, IODZ brings expertise in governance and leadership development, and ensuring that our boards and executives lead with integrity and accountability. ICAS anchors financial discipline, transparency, and reporting standards that support credible ESG disclosures and investor confidence. INSAF, our third partner, provides the thought leadership, research, and sustainability insights needed to contextualize the ESG within African developmental and business realities. Together, we present the three critical pillars of sustainability, leadership, integrity, and impact. By working as one, we can drive the alignment of governance, financial accountability, and sustainability in both corporate and national development frameworks. Ladies and gentlemen, the call to integrate sustainability is no longer a future aspiration, it's a present-day necessity. Our theme this year, Vision to Action, Integrating Sustainability, speaks of agency. Speaks of agency. It's not too late to start if we haven't started. Across the globe, businesses are being measured not just by their profits, but their purpose, by how they treat people, steward the environment, and uphold strong governance. In Zimbabwe and the region, we are witnessing growing momentum towards embedding ESG principles in business models, investment decisions, and regulatory frameworks. This shift, ladies and gentlemen, reflects a global awakening that sustainability is not a cost, but an investment in resilience, competitiveness, and future perspectives. As we look ahead, ladies and gentlemen, over the next 2 days, we will explore how to operationalize ESG across sectors, from finance to mining, infrastructure, technology, and agriculture. We will engage in case studies, best practices, and policy insights that show how sustainability can be integrated in every level of decision-making, from the boardroom to the community. This is not just another conference, ladies and gentlemen. It is a platform for commitment, collaboration, and leadership. As we officially open the second ESG conference, I invite you all to participate actively, to connect, to share, to challenge, and to innovate. Let us be bold enough to move beyond dialogue into measurable action. On behalf of the Institute of Directors Zimbabwe, the Institute of Chartered Accountants Zimbabwe, and the Institute of Sustainability Africa, I warmly welcome you once again to this important gathering. Together, let us transform our vision into action and truly integrate sustainability into the way we lead, govern, and grow. Thank you and welcome once again.
Thank you so much, Miss Catherine, for the warm welcome to the conference. Now that we are now welcomed, my name is Pascal Munjoma, and I'm going to be your MC today. Can you just clap your hands? That's great, that's great. I promise you that today and tomorrow is going to be the great days that you're going to talk about sustainability, as we are going to have a lot of topics that we'll just decompose so that they can help us in our day-to-day doing of our professional duties in the organization that we are representing today. And I'd like to thank Ms. Catherine said, to thank the three firms that have jointly partnered to make this a success. And on that note as well, I'd like to thank Delta, which is one of our partners, that is partners with us, one of our sponsors that has sponsored us, Delta. We have Zim FM, which is the Business Times, which are one of our media partners. And also, we have Pipeline Fashion. I think you can see the secretariat guys that are outside. They are all dressed with Pipeline today. Moving on to the next part of our segment, we are just going to set the tone of the conference to hear what we are going to be with the next 2 days. And also just to know what are the frameworks that we have in Zimbabwe that govern sustainability. What are the frameworks that we have that are going to help us in our day-to-day duties, in our professional duties each and every time. So at this moment in time, I would like to call upon the CEO of Institute of Sustainability Africa, Mr. Rodney Ndamba, to take us through the setting of the tone of the conference, as well as the regulatory frameworks that sits around sustainability here in Zimbabwe. So, Mr. Ndamba.
Okay, good morning. Good morning. It's good to actually see all of you. Sorry, I'm going to be moving up and down. I think for some of us, We are possibly the few remaining remnants of the black Japanese, so our height does not go up on a certain level. So when I start feeling short, I'll have to climb up here. Thank you. So I'm going to take you through in terms of sustainability. What is it all about? That is going to be the initial part of it. Then I'll then take you through the second part of the presentation, which will just take you through the standards that we have available and what are some of the conversations that are starting to take place within this region in relation to sustainability, and why does it matter for your organization and how we have to integrate it. So as I will take you through, you may find possibly some of how I'm going to present it, because I'm also going through quite a transition. When you have been in a field for some time, you need to also transition. So there's a sort of a shift in me to becoming more of a philosopher in the subject, where I'm starting to question the being of sustainability and what does it matter for an entity for you to take it up. And when we refer to sustainability, ESG, where are the differences? Where do we see the differences? And what do they mean for your organization? And which one are you taking up? So like in the past week, I was actually in Zambia. And with the conference, they were also beginning to be more concerned about emerging trends in sustainability. And what do they matter for the country like Zambia, companies in Zambia, and what do that matter for the continent of Africa? Because things are actually continuously shifting. And in the world that we are living right now, there are also mixed voices around sustainability, around ESG, and which one are we looking at? And here is a world that we are living in. We've got the reporting, which is talked a lot, but we also have the practice. So when you look into those pictures, you see who is getting more attention. It's the guy who is talking a lot about his story. This is what we are doing. What about the guy who is actually doing it in practice? They're very lonely. And what does it mean? So if you look into these two pictures, where does your organization fit? Where could you place your organization? Or where could you place most companies in Zimbabwe? Maybe just one or two hands. Where do we fit? Maybe we are talking a lot about the reporting, isn't it? So the theme for this year, which has been highlighted earlier on, vision to action. Because we have been talking about sustainability for many years, but it has come to a time where we now need to speak about the action. Where our reporting here that we are talking about need to be evidenced by the actions on the ground. What is it that we are doing in our organization? And how do we transition this to competitiveness in terms of our business? So ESG, or sustainability, there are about 4 pillars. We have got the economic pillar, the environmental pillar, the social pillar, and the governance pillar. And sustainability is all about the decisions and the actions that we make. It's about the action. You can think about sustainability, and if you don't act upon it, it means you're literally doing nothing. So it's about the decisions and the actions. It's about the risks and opportunities in towards resource efficiency. I'm sure we all are aware of the definition of sustainable development. But with that definition, you can summarize it with just 2 words. It's all about resource efficiency. And when you look into your organization, what resources do you have in your organization? And how efficiently are you utilizing them? It could be human capital, it could be financial capital, intellectual capital, the natural capital, manufactured capital. How efficiently are you utilizing that? And that's what separates you from the next organization. The same applies in our continent. Yes, we talk about we are endowed with so many natural resources, but how efficiently are we utilizing them for human development? And that's what differentiates us and the next country. And when I conclude the slides, I'm going to show you one institution in one country that has tried to differentiate itself from the rest of the African countries. So, from the 4 pillars, this is where ESG comes from. And we now have 2 forms of ESG that exist. And it depends which one is for you. We've got ESG that starts with environmental, social, and governance. Then we've got ESG that starts with economic, environmental, social, and governance. And these 2 sits in different places. The first one is mostly for risk management, very much more synonym to developed economies, and it's mostly for responsible business conduct. And this is where you find standards such as your ISB, which is the International Sustainability Standards Board, which we call the IFRS S1 and S2, and it's mostly for that. Then you've got the European Sustainability Reporting Standards, which I'm going to talk about in the next session. Then the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures, and this is more about risk management. Then the second one on economic, it's more about delivering impacts. And this is very much more synonym to developing and emerging economies like ourselves. And very much more linked to sustainable development goals. That's where you have got standards such as your GRI, your UN Global Compact, SDGs, business and human rights. So when you look into these 2 forms, you can actually choose which one is suitable for you. Or you may want to take a hybrid approach, both delivering impact whilst also making sure that you manage the risk that your organization may be exposed to or is actually causing. And this is where we find ourselves now differentiating to say which one is actually suitable for our continent. Why the second one becomes very much more, because some of you may still recall, Zimbabwe, we used to have the Indigenization and Economic Empowerment Act. It was more to do with the economic pillar. In South Africa, they have the Black Economic Empowerment Act. It was more to do with the issues of that economic pillar. And this is where the difference between those, because when it comes to issues of economic development, we still know that they are actually a priority. And that's where some of the standards also now speak to issues of economic empowerment. From a sustainability, how do you identify what your economic contributions to the country as a business beyond just paying your taxes? And this is where the difference comes. But where does sustainability start from? It starts from what we call corporate sustainability, and here is just the ecology of corporate sustainability. It starts by you measuring through your strategy the targets, the commitments, and the ambitions that you want to achieve. As you implement, you then need to manage the impacts, the risks, and opportunities as they emerge. When there are negative impacts, then you need to change. And lastly, it's about the communication of your performance, your results. The reality is that corporate sustainability is a change agent. It's a transformation agenda. It's not just about collecting the numbers and reporting them. It's about the business transformation. Hence, it's actually a very comprehensive business strategy that just focuses on integrating environmental, social, and governance with the economic and operational decisions and practices. And that's what corporate sustainability is all about. But if you look at the bottom, it requires leadership and strategy, and the operationalization, which is basically implementation and integration, then the transformation, which is basically the change process that you have to go through. Then your accountability is basically the reporting process. But when you look into these 4 steps, which one do we struggle a lot in Zimbabwe? I asked the same question in Zambia, they were also able to pick one. But from a corporate culture in Zimbabwe, which one do we struggle a lot with? Just 1 or 2 hands. Which one do we struggle a lot with? From measure, manage, change, communicate, or report. Which one do we struggle a lot with? Sorry? Yes, sir. Change. This is the way the company has always been running before you were actually in primary school. Why do we need to change? And this is where sustainability then comes in. It's about transformation. And that transformation also starts with the mindset. And I'm going to show you that illustration. But there's also a philosophical dimension to sustainability, where we need to ask ourselves, why adopt it? Why adopt sustainability? Why integrate it into the business? And this is where the board comes in. If the board struggles to respond to that, why are we making sustainability a business purpose? Then its integration may actually fall into challenges. Any actions may fall into challenges. But what do we have to do to achieve it? And how will we measure our sustainability practice and impacts? And these are questions that have to be asked and answered at different levels. For example, the why, the board has to answer that. Management is about the what. Operations is about how, and your stakeholders also come in. And these are the critical aspects we have to look into if we are going to take action, because sustainability is a non-disruptor. It's all about what is it that you have been doing and how do we ensure that you are doing it in a sustainable manner. The board leadership comes in, because there's an African proverb which says that if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go with others. And it also applies within a sustainability context. When you take actions, it's not a one-man band or a one-man mission. Sustainability is a collective action if you are going to achieve it. And it starts from the lowest person to the last person. I'm sure we had an experience of it when we came. As you entered the gate, what was the greeting word? The salutation, the respect, and that's where sustainability starts from. If I am entering your company, and if I get chased at the gate, or if you could have got chased from the gate, who would you say would have chased you?
The hotel.
The hotel has chased you. But if you look at the guard, he doesn't have the uniform for the hotel, but it's the culture of the hotel that he has been. So it requires, right from the board, respective responsibilities, the CEO, finance director, operations management, they all have different responsibilities, up to the rest of the team. How does this create value? 3 pillars. Business growth. If you have been implementing your sustainability strategy, at the end of the period, you need to ask yourself, what new markets of competitiveness have we achieved? What new products, new business portfolios that we have actually initiated that are sustainability linked? Enterprise risk management. How have we been managing our operational risk? Sustainable returns. Because your investor wants a return. And how are you managing your value chains in a sustainable manner? For example, one of the biggest threats that we now face in Zimbabwe is supply chain. If you are exporting, they want to understand who are your suppliers and who are the suppliers to your supplier. Are you involved in issues like child labor? Maybe you may ask in this room, how many of the entities in this room are involved in child labor or are exposed to the risk of child labor? Any hands? Any hands? Possibly? Yes.
I think a number.
And
Numbers. I'm just thinking of our agriculture sector, where it's prevalent. So if you are in milling, you're doing flour, you're doing stock feed, you're likely to be implicated somewhat.
yeah, possibly we may say the agriculture, but they may be actually to a lower extent. They may be to a lower extent. possibly it could be a bank highly exposed to child labor. How? Through the supply chain, through its customers, through its clients. It could be a manufacturing company. Where are you sourcing your goods? And some of these are actually manufactured using child labor. You know, in some of the regions, children work under the basement overnight, sewing t-shirts that we end up buying here. Some of the cotton that we are buying is actually coming from regions in some of the countries, we'll not mention their names, where there's high human rights violation and child violation. And they end up on our offices. That's why others have moved to say, can we have a certificate of origin for that material? And your value chain management comes in. So here are some of the leaders that have also taken up sustainability and used this as a business growth strategy rather than as a compliance issue. For example, this is the gentleman is now retired, Piyush Gupta, who was actually the CEO of the Development Bank of Singapore, which was once voted one of the most sustainable banks in the world. For them, they actually look at themselves as sustainability champions and less of a bank, because they make much of their money through sustainability initiatives, investing in sustainability-related initiatives. And for them, technology was one of the key ones for driving financial inclusion within Singapore. And a very interesting one, Equity Bank. I think last year it was voted one of the best banks in Africa. But for them, they looked into what was happening in the community and how can they actually intervene by providing services that respond to community needs. And today, they've actually moved into become over $1 billion revenue bank and are actually expanding in many African countries, having started off in Kenya. Then we have got the last one, Aliko Dangote. For them today, if you go to Dangote Holding, their strategy is all about sustainability. And that's how sustainability has also helped many companies. Because it starts with a thought, a decision, and action. And if you have your thoughts, a decision, and if you don't act, nothing much will come out of it. But it also requires a change in mindset. I'm sure you can relate with these two pictures, some of the pictures. We are caught in a world where geopolitics is now defining how corporates need to operate in corporate. And if you look into these two pictures, the bigger one, that's Hiroshima, 1945. What happened there? The nuclear bomb. And 2020, that's the same place. And our leaders, where were they recently? They were in Japan, isn't it? And this is basically from 1945, and this is where it is in 2020. But what did it take for them to get there? It's about a mindset. Because you don't want to end up being like the CEO of Nokia, who ended his speech and said, we didn't do anything wrong, but somehow we lost. I'm sure many of us, some of you used Nokia phones, even though they are trying to come back. But they actually lost the market because the Samsungs came in with smartphones. But they said, look, we have got the best product, so why should we change? And this is what can happen to you if you don't change as a business, as a company. Right now, the last picture that is there is the Development Bank of Singapore. And I'm sure many of us who have been following President Trump say, you know what, let's put off ESG. Why do we need it? Let's put it off. And some of the US banks are actually scaling down on ESG. But the Development Bank of Singapore remains committed, and they're actually stepping up their investment in ESG because they're actually looking into the future. Sometimes we have to choose between progress and emotions. And that's what can differentiate you And the next person. I'm just going to take maybe 3-4 minutes just for us to watch this video and have a few questions before I proceed. Let's save the sound.
Welcome to Apple. Welcome to Apple. Hi, I'm
She should be here any minute.
How is the weather coming? I'm Tim. I'm gonna do the offices already carbon neutral, right?
Yeah, all yours.
I hope we didn't keep you waiting.
Mother Nature, welcome to Apple. How is the weather getting in?
The weather was however I wanted it to be. Let's cut to the chase. In 2020, you promised to bring Apple's entire carbon footprint to zero by 2030. Henry David Thoreau over here said we have a profound opportunity to build a more sustainable future for the planet we share.
I think our 10 o'clock said the same thing.
They all did. All right. This is my third corporate responsibility gig today, so who wants to disappoint me first?
Well, we've got some updates we're excited to share with you.
Materials, status.
Is there a materials person here?
Yes, we are in the process of eliminating all plastic from our packaging by the end.
Let me guess. 50 years from now when someone else is left holding the bag?
By the end of next year, actually.
And we're also currently using 100% recycled aluminum in the enclosures of all our MacBooks, Apple TVs, Apple Watch.
What about iPod Shuffle?
Well,
It's a joke. Don't you people make Ted Lasso?
That's a different group.
we're also phasing out leather in our iPhone cases.
What about Brando over there? They phasing you out too?
Oh.
What's next?
Electricity.
Electricity, status.
We're operating on 100% clean electricity.
What runs on 100% clean electricity?
Every Apple office, store, and data center runs on clean electricity, thanks to you and your powerful wind and sun.
And Apple offices are already carbon neutral.
This building is carbon neutral?
Well, yeah, we do it with a mix of clean energy and eliminating greenhouse emissions. It's kind of like if you were to...
You're seriously explaining carbon neutrality to Mother Nature?
Right, no, sorry.
You want to tell me how photosynthesis works too? Don't.
Also, over 300 suppliers have committed to using 100% clean, renewable electricity.
What's next?
Transportation.
I'm proud to report that we're shipping more products by ocean rather than air, which reduces transportation emissions by 95%.
95%? Not too bad.
I'm also happy to report that we're investing in projects around the world that protect the Earth's soil, plants, and trees.
Everyone says they're planting trees.
We've planted forests.
Oh, hello.
Where?
Paraguay, Brazil.
What, are you trying to save the tropical savanna?
Yes. And we've also restored mangroves in Colombia,
What else?
grasslands in Kenya.
Why?
Our aim is to permanently remove carbon from the atmosphere.
What about your water usage?
We've reduced it.
By how much?
63 billion gallons.
63 million?
Billion.
As you can see, we've innovated and retooled almost every part of our process to reduce our impact on the planet. But there's still a lot more work to do.
And there's something else we wanted to share with you.
You're not trying to bribe Mother Nature with Apple swag.
It's Apple's very first carbon neutral product.
I want to see you do more of this.
You will.
When?
By 2030, all Apple devices will have a net zero climate impact.
All of them?
All of them.
They better.
They will.
Okay, good. See you next year. Don't disappoint your mother.
Okay, assuming Mother Nature visits your organization, what would be your story? And what could be the 4 key lessons that we could have picked from this video? Maybe from 4 people in this room. Yes, sir. You can have a mic. Let me bring one.
Okay, thank you. I think the first one is basically from your first slide where we compared practice against reporting. I think it's very easy to report, but what touched me is as we are reporting, I hope Mother Nature will also be listening and maybe just come down and say something that what you are reporting is not exactly what you are doing. So I think there's much more that we have to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's hear from yes.
Thank you, and thank you for such an enlightening presentation. I think it's opening our eyes. I think the first thing I would say is it must have been such an expensive advert with Viola Davis being the lead person. And she plays it very well, and I think you can relate to it. But also the fact that leadership seems to be involved as well from the top down, because it looks like it's an inclusive discussion. You see the group CEO is there, he's the one who's actually leading the conversation. And at the forefront, you also have the whole team being part of the conversation as well. Meaning that it's easier to implement because everybody really understands the direction the organization is taking. I think those will be my comments.
Thank you. Imagine Tom Cook is being busy. It's a big company, having to take those few minutes to sit and having the video made. How many CEOs in Zimbabwe would do that? Okay, let's move to the next person. Any? Yes.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you. Mine is an issue of concern because if you look at Africa and Europe, we are at different levels of development. So, if you look at the Industrial Revolution in Britain, I think they achieved their development through unsustainable means, such as using coal in their industries. But then, as Africans, we're now being told we are still at a lower level, but we are being forced now to adopt these sustainable practices. I think we're not yet at that level. So my concern is that, fine, I was impressed by these athletes, but they're at a higher level than us. In the meantime, I think they should allow us to string along.
Okay, thank you so much. We'll take the last one, then I'll do some response.
Good morning, everyone. From the video, it shows that there is so much procrastination because they are saying by 2030, and by the time 2030, you will find that we are not even at the start level. We are still implementing or writing. We want to do A, B, C, D, but by 2030, you will find out that we would have done nothing.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so the target that they were setting is the 2030 was achieving net zero, and the global standard is 2050. which means they actually brought forward 2050 to 2030. 20 years ahead of what the world would have achieved, they've actually brought it forward. And that's what is there. Then I think the issue of development, that's a question I think in many countries that I've presented, I get the same question, but at the end of the next part of these slides, I'm going to show you how one country says, you know what, we are not going to wait for someone. And one of the things we have to bear in mind is that no one is going to come for us. We have to do it ourselves, or we are going to perish. So nobody is going to come for your company, nobody is going to, because those that have actually adopted them, this is what they are actually competing on. And that's part and parcel of their strategy. Like in the past week, I was in northern Zambia, this company we started working on, it's in the energy sector. And when I sat with the renewable team directors and having to take them through the training on sustainability, you find that they've built up very strong ambitions to such an extent that at the moment, they actually early this year, they are one of the companies to become a $1 billion company in Zambia. And how many billion-dollar companies do we have in Zimbabwe? Besides the one that was there, which is Econet, not Econet, INSCO, and how many? So these are actually the ambitions, because sustainability is about business opportunities. It's about business opportunities. So you have to decide, do you let that opportunity go and wait for the right time? We are actually behind. That's the reality. So we have to take action now, and which is the theme of this year. It's about action. Those who are going to invade our markets, their strategies are all about sustainability. So let's move into the standards. So sustainability standards are not a means to the end. They are just an enabler. Because companies will become so caught in compliance. Then at the end, when we say how much value has been created from compliance, you realize possibly not much. So in Zimbabwe, there are about 4 regulatory streams for sustainability in Zimbabwe. We've got SI 134 of 2019, Section 399404 on sustainability information and disclosure for the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange listed companies. Then the Victoria Falls draft Stock Exchange draft rules, Section 398403, which is almost similar text with the ZSE1, requires sustainability information and disclosure. Then we have got the Public Entities Corporate Governance Act for all parastatals, government departments, Section 315 to 322, integrated sustainability reporting. Then we've got a number of clauses that points towards sustainability practices in the Companies and Other Business Entities Act. And you've got Section 220 on corporate governance, and it refers you to Zim Code. If you go to Zim Code, Section 5 requires sustainability information and disclosure. However, we have seen quite some movement on the ZSE listed companies because it's now mandatory. But on the Public Entities Corporate Governance Act, you find that, yeah, there is quite a lot to be done, even though I think from last year to this year, it has been very encouraging to see public entities that have moved into taking up sustainability and making steps now to implement, and also working on the disclosures. But in the Companies and Other Business Entities Act, you find that there are also clauses that can be very, I will avoid the word dangerous, but I can put you in a very legal fix. One of the clauses that as a director or officer of an entity, you are supposed to exercise due care in the affairs of the entity, which may leave you exposed to personal legal liabilities in an individual capacity as an officer of an entity. And it does not specify due care in the following areas. It left it open, which means it also covers sustainability issues. And this is where it then exposes. So it's now more compliant to also similar practices in South Korea and Israel as well, where you can be held legally liable as a director of an organization in a personal capacity. And this is, but two standards that have been referred is the GRI, which is the Global Reporting Initiative, and the IFRS Sustainability Disclosure Standard. These are basically the two standards. So this is basically some of the clauses within the Public Entities Corporate Governance Act. And it's very, very clear. It makes reference to guidance by the GRI standards, the report contents, issues of assurance, if you have to go for assurance, which will be talked about tomorrow, but also the requirements and the contents. But it also places sustainability under the responsibility of the audit committee of any parastatal. They are actually responsible for, and the delegation of responsibility on sustainability matters is also clearly outlined. Then for listed entities, we've got the SI 134 of 2019. It also places the responsibility of sustainability on the board, and it also provides the standards to be used, the contents, and addition in terms of industry or sector specific. And if you consider assurance, there are also requirements that you have to provide once you go for assurance of your sustainability reports. So, ZSC also had to come out with minimum disclosure indicators for every listed company. There are about 20 matrices that have been recommended, and they are split between economic, environmental, social, and governance. And these are the minimum disclosure requirements for every listed company. And this approach is also similar to the Singapore Stock Exchange. Singapore Stock Exchange has got about 32 matrices, which they call the minimum disclosure requirement, which means every company has to disclose this, because much of this is found in every company. For example, how many companies, a company should know how much electricity that they are using. Even though sometimes these are very difficult figures to get in Zimbabwe companies. How much water are you using? You may not get this figure. How much water is the company using? But in Zimbabwe, we've got a concept of dealing with this. We call it the P2C. What does that stand for? Pass it on to the consumer. If it's something that you can't measure, you've paid up for it, just pass it on to the consumer. This is what makes our products and services less competitive in the region. They are too expensive. It's some of these things that we can't actually control and manage. How much waste is coming from the companies? So sustainability standards, I'm just going to run you through. There's about 3 ones that are very much more contextual. Some of them are actually the present. Some of them may actually have future effects for many companies in Zimbabwe. We've got the Global Reporting Initiative, focusing on reporting on impacts. Then the IFRS Sustainability Disclosure Standards, mostly on the financial effects of sustainability-related risks and opportunities. Then the European Sustainability Reporting Standards. These are new kids on the block, so they mostly focus on responsible business conduct. And I'll share how they are going to affect. So the GRI standard, these are basically the KPIs. They are also going through revision. A lot of them are now being revised so that they are very responsive to the current context and the development. But they are mostly for impacts reporting. And they also have sector-specific standards. For example, the current one that are there is for oil and gas, coal, agriculture, and mining. And at the moment, they are now working on the financial service sector, the textile. The target is to develop about 40 industry-specific or sector-specific. And the key processes in implementing is that you have to do a situational analysis so that you understand your environment. How are you impacting and how are you being impacted? Materiality assessment, what are the most significant impacts your organization has? And your stakeholders, as you engage them, what are some of the issues that they are mostly concerned? Because from your stakeholders, that's where risks and opportunities can be identified. Then your key performance indicators leading up to data collection and the production of your report. So the next one is the IFRS Sustainability Disclosure Standards. These are coming mostly from the accountants profession because they were missing on the table of sustainability. And now they are on the table. And two standards are currently in issue. IFRS S1, the general requirements for sustainability-related financial disclosures. Then IFRS S2 is about climate-related disclosures. But however, on these standards, I think within the African continent, what we are picking is, it's a misreading of the standards, where we read them from a very technical language, and what do they really mean? And they are being referred as the baseline or the global de facto on sustainability. They are only there to provide the monetizing of the effects of sustainability impacts. What is the monetary effect? For example, if you increase your water intake or use by 20%, what is the financial effect? And how would that affect your expenses and your balance sheet and your cash flow? That's what these standards are all about in a simple way. So they also require you to disclose in terms of your governance responsibilities, how they have been factored into your strategy. When it comes to the company strategy, how do you manage sustainability-related risks and opportunities? And can we find that in your corporate strategy? And your risk management, does it integrate ESG or sustainability issues? And which are the matrices that you are actually tracking? So there are quite a number of formalities for you to go through and adopt them. There is need for a formal board adoption. Because when the auditors come, they need to see the minutes that you formally adopted them. Gap analysis, transitional plans, all of those need to be actually performed. Then the strategic alignment. How do we align them with our existing reporting practice? Then the next thing is about your implementation. So this is just a map of the global trend of how countries have actually moved into adopt them. The screen may not be clear, but you actually see Zimbabwe right at the bottom on those that are actually under consideration on the voluntary, then you've got the mandatory. But my research and analysis, looking into all countries in Africa that were early adopters, most of them had actually economies that were struggling. Because the perception is that this will actually attract investors. And that was actually. But investors go beyond the reports. They look into a lot of issues. So, but the level of preparedness as well, yeah, it still remains an issue. The European Sustainability Reporting Standards, much of them is about responsible business conduct. But however, when you go to the social side of these standards, they require you to go and look into the working conditions of your suppliers. I don't know if you've heard, I think in the past years, Zimbabwe were in the news about forced labor. Two sectors where this came out in a report. I think the third and the fourth one were served by the bell. Two sectors. The UN reports were the issues of forced labor. The first one was the tobacco industry. The next one was the mining industry. The third one that was in line was going to be the retail sector. And the fourth one that was going to be there was the banking sector. Was it that because we had soldiers that would go around saying, you work with a gun? It was not like that. The definition of forced labor is when one is paid a wage that does not allow them to meet basic human needs. It means they are working under forced conditions. That's now the definition. So what that does is, in these standards, they require you to go and look into the workers in the value chain, workers within your supply chain. What are the working conditions? And so far, I think we've got about 2-3 companies that we've worked with. One of them, they actually got their hands bent on that. When the due diligence team came, they did not focus on the company. They went to the suppliers, and they find that the working conditions were just not right, so they were held also responsible. And this is what these standards are all about. So in Africa, much of these standards are going to filter into trade agreements. and they can become a non-trade tariff barrier, impacting actually trade between EU and Africa. At economic level, that's restriction to markets, particularly those that are in exports. So at the company level, it's about restriction when you fail to demonstrate responsible business conduct, which can then impact your ability to actually export in some of these EU markets. So as I draw to a close, how do we operationalize sustainability? Board oversight, roadmaps, the strategy need to be in place and have a robust data management system. Because many companies find themselves in this picture, where we have got huge sustainability goals. But what is pulling those goals?
Very small budget.
It's a very small budget. So when the budgets are done, finance professionals ensure that you have included budgets on implementing sustainability initiatives. If you leave it too thin, it means this plane will not move. You will remain on the tarmac. Some of the common trends, I think from my experience in Zimbabwe, is issue of data availability and accuracy. Quite a common problem. How much water are you using? Possibly there's no flow meter. In one company, I think the ZESA meter last worked 10 years, but they were still paying to the service provider. Based on what? Statement. The statement is based on estimates. And possibly their actual consumption is 60%, which means 40% is free, money for donation. It's for donation. I know I'll offend people, but it's free money. So it requires you to actually have accurate data, tracking your consumption and making sure that you're pricing it. Then the financial integration, where you find that the financial performance and sustainability performance are two separate worlds. And there's no clear link. Internal capacity, having people with dedicated sustainability skills, and also internal controls. Sometimes, because much of the reporting is done at year end, but what happens in between action? So these are some of the global shifts. I think some of the statistics in terms of how policies on sustainability are being developed around the world, and there's been quite a growing trend. So the last slide I have is basically this one. This is the case study of the Development Bank of Rwanda. The screen not being so clear, you'll find that they actually report on the impacts that they've generated, and with specific numbers of how much they've actually contributed. And if you go into that 2024 annual report, you find that they've developed, the numbers are straight. For example, Rwanda Energy Access and Quality Improvement Projects. And you find that this data speaks to what impact, if it's a community, if it's by gender, they actually specify and measure that impact. And you can actually see these are some of the global awards that they've actually won based on their operation. They are not talking of local awards. These are global awards with global recognition, and they are also rated by international institutions, which basically means for them it's an ambition to be globally competitive. So we must aim for the top. It's actually less crowded up there. And I think as companies, as a nation, I think we need to have very strong ambitions. I think with that, I want to end with this remark. Those who come after us, they will judge us on the impact of our actions. What did it contribute? And if they don't see something positive, some of our graves are going to be turned into golf courses. Golf courses, where you had, We bury near the hills, isn't it? Aunties? That would be actually a nice golf site. Because for them, they say, okay, so these people, what did they do for us? We now have to draw a bamboo, how it looks like. We now have to draw a baobab, how it looks like. Because they did cut them off, the rivers are no longer there. So what history are we leaving for the next generation as transient caretakers on planet Earth? Because we are not here to live forever. We are mere passerbys. But what are we leaving behind? I think I will stop here.